In Psalm 104 verse 14, the Bible states that God gave herbs for the service of man. I love that verse because that verse defines the herbs for the service of man. When you put a herb into your body, the herb says to your body, where would you like me? Where would you like me to go? But what's interesting, in every herb, God puts specific actives for different parts of the body. And there are a few herbs that directly coat, soothe and heal the lining of the gastrointestinal tract. One is aloe vera. When you open an aloe vera leaf, it's very slimy, isn't it? It's just like the lining of our gastrointestinal tract. It's a little slimy. So aloe vera can coat, soothe and heal the lining of the gut. And there is another herb called slippery elm. Slippery elm is the powdered bark of the slippery elm tree. And when you put water with slippery elm, it goes a little, you might say slimy. It's called slippery elm. I guess that's a nicer sounding word, is to say slippery. It goes a little thick. Both aloe vera and slippery elm contains growth stimulants, stimulating rapid healing in the lining of the gut. The cells that line the gastrointestinal tract are remade every 3 to 5 days. And so the gut is probably one area where you can get responses quite quickly, as you will see as I relate Tom's story. The slippery elm coats, soothes and heals the lining of the gastrointestinal tract. It also can give a little bit of firmness to the stools. Because Tom's situation was quite chronic, I added a couple of more herbs to that. So this is the mix we did. 80% slippery elm, 10% myrrh. Now myrrh is that gum resin, and it was given to baby Jesus. Remember the wise men bought the myrrh, the frankincense and the gold? Gold's expensive. Frankincense, very expensive. Tiny little bottle of frankincense essential oil cost about $70. Myrrh is also a very valuable herb. Myrrh is able to contribute to the healing, especially in the gut. The other herb is golden seal. Golden seal is given a nickname, king of tonics to all mucous membranes. And the gut is lined with mucous membranes. So it's a tonic to the mucous membrane. But something else very interesting about golden seal, it's one of my favourite herbs. Golden seal is anti-staphylococcic, it's anti-streptococcic, it's antibiotic, it's antifungal, it's antibacterial. Powerful herb. It's a very expensive herb. At one stage, when it was hard to buy, we were paying $800 a kilo. I think it's a little less at the moment. We see it as gold. It looks like gold. It is almost fluorescent yellow when it is ground up. So let's go back to this mix. 80% slippery elm, 10% myrrh, which has been ground to a powder, and 10% golden seal, which has also been ground to a powder. So this is mixed in a jar, and warm to hot water is poured on, say a spoonful, maybe half a cup, and then it's mixed very quickly and then drunk. The more it sits, the thicker it gets. So with Tom, we gave him slippery elm, the slippery elm mix. We call it gut repair. We gave him that mix 4 times a day. We gave it to him at about 8 o'clock, we gave it again about the middle of the day, we gave it about 6 o'clock, and we gave it again just before he went to bed. So while he's sleeping, it's coating, soothing and healing the lining of his gut. When he came to us, he was on 20 milligrams of cortisone a day. He'd been on that for a few months. He was on anti-inflammatories. He said, what will I do with my medication? I said, I don't want you to touch your medication at the moment. We're going to implement a few changes and we're going to watch to see what the body does with this. When he came to us, he was having 8 bowel movements a day. He said before he went on the cortisone and anti-inflammatories, sometimes it was 15 bowel movements a day. The first day at our retreat was juices. So every 2 hours we serve fresh vegetable and fruit juices. Most of our juices are about 80% carrot, 10% celery, 10% apple. So just juices. And one might think, isn't that going to make his bowel movements even more liquid? Well, I believe that his gastrointestinal tract needed a break. In fact, he had testified to me that he had a big flare-up when he was 30. He was hospitalised. He was on no food for a whole week, and he was fed basically by an IV. And I do know that that's what they will do sometimes, just to give this gut a rest. So the juices was giving his gut a rest. So he came to us on Sunday. He had a vegetable meal with us lunch Sunday. His first dose of the gut repair was Sunday night. Monday morning, I went to see him. I said, how was your night? It's not unusual for him to go 4 or 5 times a night. He said, quite good. He said, I only went 3 times last night. He said, for me, that's quite good. I talked to him at the end of Monday. I said, how are things going? He said, well, my cramping has stopped. He said, I have this terrible cramping every day. And he said, I've actually gone 6 times today instead of 8 times. So he said, I'm pretty happy. Tuesday, I said, how was your night? He said, I only got up twice last night. He had a big smile on his face. Tuesday afternoon, how was your day? He said, I've only gone 5 times today. He said, that's quite remarkable. And he said, the stools are starting to have a little bit of form. And he said, my bleeding has stopped. So Wednesday, so that was 2 days on juices. Wednesday, food begins. So I suggested that he have no raw food, that while his gut is repairing, he have cooked food. Cooked food is softer on the gut. And probably the easiest would be vegetables. I said, well, just hold off with the fruit for now. And we're also going to hold off with a lot of the grain, maybe a little bit of rice, ideally white rice. Remember, we're dealing with a very compromised raw gut there. So we had mostly vegetables. We'd soaked, rinsed very well, some legumes and put a little bit of that in. I'm watching to see how his body responds. What was quite remarkable, by Friday, he was having 4 bowel movements in that 24-hour period. And they all had a little bit of form, which was remarkable, considering he just had liquid. The bleeding had stopped and he had no cramping. He had a smile on his face so big. He was carrying around a jar. I said, what's the jar? He said, gut repair. He said, this is my gold. He was very, very excited. Do you remember what I said? The cells that line the gastrointestinal tract, they're remade every 3 to 5 days. So when given the right condition, the gut can respond quite quickly. In fact, it responds very quickly. Now, Tom's not healed. He's not healed yet at this point. So Friday, when we heard that the stools had a bit more form, no bleeding, no cramping, I said to him, how do you feel about stopping your anti-inflammatories? He was going to be here for another week. He said, I'm interested. Can you see when we start to consider this? We consider it when we watch that the body is responding. He stopped his anti-inflammatories and it made no difference. He still went on Saturday and Sunday 4 times a day. Now, if he had gone back to going 8 times a day, would he go back on the anti-inflammatories? Well, he's got a choice. Because his body hasn't had it for 24 hours, he could go back on half dose. But there is another option, which is the option I would advise. I said, I have no authority over your medication, only you and your doctor have. I can tell you what I would do. But if he'd started 8 times a day, I would have just started to take the gut repair, remember the slippery on golden seal and myrrh, take it every 2 hours. And what I have found is that will slow it down. Can you see I'm also teaching him The only hope of better things is the education of people in the right principles. And the best education is experimental education, meaning you hear it, it makes sense, you try it, and your body will say, this is good. It will say, no, it is not good. If it says it is not good, it might need a little bit more herbs. It might need a little bit more time. So you always take that into the equation. Monday's looking good. I said to Tom, how do you feel about going from 20 milligrams of prednisone, down to 15? He said, I'm interested. He did. No reaction at all. If he'd stopped, I'm sure there would have been a reaction. He has to come off this slowly. When Tom went home after being with us for 2 weeks, he was going 3 times a day to the bathroom. His stools had formed, still a little softer than most, but it's got form. He had no nausea. He had no cramping in his gut. He had no bleeding from his bowel. My suggestion to Tom was to keep listening to his body. I said, don't step sideways with what you have been eating. Don't do that yet. Stick to what you're doing because it's working. And the Bible says in 1 Thessalonians 5:21, prove all things and hold fast to that which is good. I gave him that verse. I said, hold fast to that which is good. It's working, do it. I said, you won't be eating like this forever, but just until you heal. When you know you're healed, he will know he's healed when he's eventually off all the cortisone, all the prednisone. And he can start eating other foods, and if everything is happy, then little by little he can introduce other foods. If he introduces other foods too quickly and he gets a reaction, maybe diarrhea, stop immediately. Go back onto the gut repair every 2 hours until it settles right down, and then we start again. Remember, nature's process of healing and upbuilding is gradual. It's gradual, and to the impatient it seems slow. Really, he has had this problem, I would like to suggest, for 40 years. It was first shown with his reaction to the formula as a baby. It took a while to develop because we live in an amazing body that endures so much, for so long. But little by little, he stuck to the program. No one could talk him out of that. And if his mate was in front of him with a plate full of donuts, he just threw his head back and laughed because he looked at that donut and you know what he thought to himself? There's the cramping again, there's the bleeding, there's the diarrhea. No thanks. No thanks. He left a very happy man. He was told that he would never heal because he had an autoimmune disease. Autoimmune diseases can manifest themselves in different ways, in many different people. And that's why you're the doctor, because your body will tell you. Your body lets you know if it's not working.